Mosa Babu Toha, 7 fingers. Whenever she meets new people, she sings. Her small hands into the pockets of her jeans, moves them as if she's counting some coins. She's just lost 7 fingers in the war. Then she moves away, back hunched, tiny as a dwarf. Good evening, dear guests. Welcome. Now we have the presentation of the novel of TAINA TERVONEN, The Bone Whispers, in conversation with Faruk Shekic. Bonsoir aussi.
Hi, we can skip the greetings words, and it's my pleasure to have a conversation today with TAINA TERVONEN. She is a French and Finnish author. She lives in Paris, and she's born in Finland, and she's grown up in Senegal. So it's very interesting biography. And we are here to present your book. I don't know the title in English, in French, but in English was, as I know, from your agency, it was The Grave Diggers. Yes. And we translated here. I mean, Nihal Hasanovic was the translator of the book, and the translation was very. I mean, very good. I mean, it was. He is also the writer. I don't know, is he present here? And yes, that was. Just a moment. Okay, TAINA is also she is living from another job. Like a lot of writers, she is a journalist. And my first question, I have like a list of questions here, like not too many, like 14. and okay, I can say something about the book before we start to talk. This is non-fiction book, and we can call it a novel, or like documentary non-fiction. You will, of course, answer to that. And it is about real events, about with real people inside of the events, and the characters have real names. So my first question is, what was the initial trigger for writing The Grave Diggers?
Okay, this one is working. Okay.
This is
Yeah. Well, first of all, I wanted to thank Nihan, the translator, and ByBook, the publisher of this book. It's very a special thing for me to see this book come back to where the story started 14 years ago. So I'm very, very happy to be here, and thank you for coming and listening to this. The story of this book is a little bit peculiar, because I wasn't supposed to write a book about this story. As we were discussing just before with Faruk, some books happen. That's what she said. And this is exactly what happened with this book. It just happened. I first came to Bosnia in 2010, a little bit by, let's say, by coincidence as a journalist. And then I kept on coming back during 10 years. I first wrote just some journalistic pieces, and then I made a web documentary, and then I made a feature film, a documentary as well. And all this was over, and then I met my French publisher, Marchiali, And I met him completely for another story that I was working on, and he asked me questions about what I had been doing before. So I talked a lot about Bosnia because I had finished editing the second film, and it was all very present in my mind. And he told me, you should write a book about it. I said, no way. I just finished the film. I wanted to move on to other stories. And he insisted. And so I finally decided to do it. At least try. And so the book exists now. And this book has been, it was a surprise for me, as I hadn't been thinking about writing this book. And it was a surprise also because it has been translated into 7 languages after the publication in French. And I didn't expect that at all to happen. Neither did the publisher, the French publisher. So it has been like good surprises. And what has been very touching or moving for me also is that this story has continued to travel in other countries, in other languages that I don't speak. It has been translated into Italian, Spanish, English just came out in the United States this week. Polish, now here. It will also come out in Bulgaria and in Austria, so in German. And for instance, when it was published in Spain, I had a lot of talks with Spanish journalists, and it had a different echo in Spain, this story. It echoed differently because in Spain they too have mass graves. So, it's very, I don't know how you say, puzzling to see how the stories move on and travel and touch readers that I will never meet, and we will never know each other, but the story still is there. And it's also moving because, as you just said, all these people exist with their real names in the book, but also in real life.
And how long it took you to finish the book?
Well, the book covers about 10 years of my work in Bosnia. The writing actually was, it occurred during the COVID period. We had these 2 lockdowns in France, so I wrote it during these 2 lockdowns. It was quite fast. Actually, I went back to all my archives, starting from 2010, my old notebooks, the recordings, the pictures, the footage for the films and so on. And it was quite interesting to do this. I felt that I was digging into my own archives, trying to go back 10 years before, trying to go back also to the questions that I had in mind 10 years before, which obviously, my questions were not exactly the same as they are today.
Is it possible to say that that one of the main characters in your book is the mass grave?
Well, if you say so, I will not. You might say it that way, I guess. I would say one of the main characters of the book are the missing, which are very, very, very present all the time in the book, because all the work that the 2 main characters, Senem and Daria, all their work is about finding the missing, finding the human remains, and then trying to identify the human remains which are being found, and to give them back to the families who are looking for them. So these missing, they are always there, be it in the mass graves or in the memories of the living. The mass grave is itself, for me, it was in Tomashica in 2013. The mass grave was discovered, and By then I had been going back and forth into this region for about 3 years. And when I heard the news of the mass grave, I thought about, should I go or should I not go? I didn't have any kind of, there was no media asking me to go. So if I went, it was just because I wanted to. And it's kind of a weird question to ask oneself, like, should I go and see the work on a mass grave for a week? And I finally did. Maybe because of one specific reason. It was by then I had been listening to the stories of the families for so long. I had also been seeing the work being done by people like Senem, like the forensic work, for so long that I wanted to see this very specific moment where the past comes out of the earth. In French we have this expression saying le passé remonte à la surface, which means that the past emerges to the surface. And this is literally what is happening when the forensics start to work on a mass grave. The past gets into the surface. And I guess that's what I wanted to see and try and understand what this means, what this very specific moment means. And I had no idea actually what I would see. In the book, I say that I thought, when I went there, I was thinking that the mass grave is an idea, because you think about the idea of evil, the idea of destruction, and so on. But actually, that was not what I was looking for. That was not what I was looking at. What I was looking at was hard work. I was looking at people doing their jobs and very, very hard work, very physical work also. And I think that is something that remained with me afterwards. These were people undoing what other people had done 20 years before. So it was, I had this image of how would you say, like banality? Do you say this in English? Yes, banality. It was like looking at the banality of good after the banality of evil. That's really what I felt during that week.
Okay, yes. I read before I decided that we will publish your book. I was what was striking me in one interview with you, or it was like excerpt for your book. It's one sentence, and it's like this: nothing can prepare you to see the mass grave. So personally, I never saw one open mass grave. So, or like Sanem in the opening of your book, she said that look the bones telling the story. Yes, that was when I read it. I knew that I want to publish your book. So, of course, you. Content is, like we said already about what is this book, but your style is very light. Very readable, and sentences are short, and the meanings is precise, and it's in a way it's very easy to read your book, but.
Well, thank you.
But of course, content is what is striking, and it's easy, but it's like not explosion. It's like you read it easy, but everything stays inside of you for a long time. So when somebody asks you to describe your book in like American way, like in Hollywood way, we are talking here about mass graves. Of course, it's not connected with entertainment at all. But like when they ask some movie director to say something about like very how can you put your book in 2 or 3 sentences, or more, of course?
Oh, that's a that's a difficult question. Maybe what I would say is that this is a book about two very strong women who try to restore the dignity of the dead. That's the way I would pitch it, like they say. For me, it was very important writing this book that the work that Senem and Daria are doing, which are the two main characters of the book, one working with the dead and one working with the living, that the work that they do and that they have been doing for, I think by now they have been doing this for 20 years now. I'm not sure about the exact years, but this is about it. That, you know, the importance of their work is being understood. I think I understood it not, you know, the first time, not the first time that I went to the morgue and saw Senem at work. I didn't understand what it was about. I understood a little bit about it, and then by coming back and back and back, and then coming back and following Daria into the families and listening to her speaking with the families and so on. I remember there is one very specific moment when I was thinking that, okay, and now I understand something, what their work is about. Their work is about really restoring the dignity of the dead and taking care of our common humanity. That's the way I really felt it, that humanity is not something that you can divide. It's something that we all have in common. And they were looking after the humanity, our common humanity. But I think, you know, this is what I felt. But then when you have to turn this into a story and into a book, then of course it's another question. And while writing, I was thinking about their work. It's very precise work. You have to be very precise and very careful when you do this job, because of course you can make mistakes, and no mistakes are allowed. You can imagine that no mistakes are allowed when doing this work. So and so you have to be very, do you say meticulous in English? Méticuleux. And very precise, and that's what I wanted to kind of have also in the writing. And of course, when you write about these kind of stories, you cannot, you have to be very delicate with emotions. You cannot underline them. They are there, of course. I mean, of course they are there, but you cannot go and look for them. I mean, either they are there in the writing, but I don't know. I've a lot of times felt when I followed Daria into the families. I have been filming with her for a couple of 2-3 years. That when, you know, all these memories of what happened, they were there, but the surface is very calm. I don't know how you would say this. I don't understand the language. I understand just a couple of words from here and there. So during all these interviews that I was filming, I didn't know the exact things that were being discussed. So I just had to follow, you know, when you know, shooting, to follow the little signs, the silences. And I think this is the most important thing that this country and this story has given to me, is you know, being conscious of the importance of listening to silence. Silences have a lot to tell if you just take the time and listen.
Yes, it's for me it was it's a new thing. How said it's something what is new for me in your book. It's the way in which you combine culture of remembrance. I mean, dealing with the past, with in a way feminism, because your main character are mostly women. young women or not so young, or women who victims who survived the war, and they are now living in this kind of or other kind of silence that we will maybe never understand because we don't have that kind of biography. And that was for me like I mean, it's very intelligent and because it's not the ordinary like story about war in Bosnia, and like a lot of people, foreigners, came here and for various reasons, from adventurers to the I don't know to some kind of literary safari or whatever. So and what is make difference between you and Peter Maas, you are Peter Maas on one side, and other people who produce different kind of book. It's I think it's authenticity of the writing and reason why you write this, why you finish this book. Even in the beginning, you can have that like trigger is not important. What can trigger you? So what will be my next question? I almost forget.
Don't worry.
So I have a lot of. I'm interested how your book is received in France, for example.
The book came out in France just after COVID in 2021. It was not possible to have meetings in libraries, for instance, and bookshops or libraries, because it was still forbidden. So the book lived its life without me, in a way. The publisher was a bit worried because they were thinking, okay, how on earth are we going to sell this book? If you say it's a book about mass graves, it's not a very commercial, argument for, the French market, at least. And well, actually, it had quite a lot of press when it came out, and that's how the book lived on. It has been reprinted in France, which is a good news, of course. But I have had very few discussions, actually, conversations with the public because of this COVID context. So I sometimes have, feedback from readers who contact me via social media or that kind of things. And the thing that I hear very often is that people say, I didn't know about this work. I didn't know about this kind of jobs. And they are quite impressed by the two main characters who are very, like I said, strong women. And that's, coming back to what you just said, I think Bosnia is very rich of very strong women. I can say that. And maybe that is something that I have had. I have had a lot of conversation with women, not always like conversations. Sometimes we just, drink a beer together, smoke a cigarette, and then we talk about kids. Sometimes it can be that simple as that, but there are a lot of things being said between the cigarettes, and also with the silences. And sometimes it comes, these small things about saying that I cannot, someone telling me, I have trouble sleeping. I have to take pills in order to sleep. And sometimes that's just enough. You don't have to know all the story. And that's when I said, like, listening to the silences, this is something that I have a lot listened to here.
And when you met with the victims, with the women, and did you said you described what you saw inside of them, and I read your book and I know. And but do you think that literature can give like some kind of hope, not to be cure, not to be like some medicine, but more in a way like how said this German word Ersatz, like substitute for the justice that will maybe never come.
I don't think literature can be a substitute for justice, because justice is important and it needs to be given and done, and that work really needs to be done. I think literature is more about beauty. That's how I see it. Even though I write non-fiction, I don't write fiction, but even non-fiction for me, it's literature. This book is written like a novel. I mean, you can read it like a novel, though everything is true inside it. Yes, that I would put it this way: you need to look at beauty in the world. I think this is something that can give us consolation, maybe. That's how I see it. I don't think it can cure anything. At least, that's not my point of view. But I think it can, give you relief and consolation. And it's important to try and go and look for the beauty of things, even in very awful things. I think there is always lights, and that's at least how I see it. I have been working quite a lot on stories which are not necessarily very happy ones. I work a lot also on migration. So I've also been working on the missing in the context of migration, which is another topic. Yet it's the same kind of stories. I mean, the words that I have heard here in the families of the missing are exactly the same words that I have heard in the families of the missing in small villages in Senegal. The exact same words. But yeah, literature is about beauty. I mean, I don't know what you think as a writer, but that's at least how I feel about it. Yeah.
Before this meeting, we talk about your characters who are living person, and you mentioned Senem, who is main character, and we talk about how they will receive the book now in Bosnian, and you said that they already Senem read it in English, and what was her reaction?
She said something like, "Good job," which is a really compliment coming from her. It's very curious for me to write this book about, very real characters inside, and these persons not being able to read the book until now. We discussed it before I started to write it, so they were okay with me writing it. And then I sent them, before sending the manuscript to my publisher, I sent them extracts from the manuscript translated into English, so that they could read it and say if there was something that was troubling them, and we could talk about it. But the whole book, they read it just, I can't remember, maybe a month ago, when the book was translated into English, and so I had the English translation and the manuscript, so I could send it to them. They had forgotten a lot of things that happened. Of course, life goes on, And when I first met Senem, it was in 2010, so it's a long time ago. A lot of things happened in her life, in Daria's life as well. And so I think that might be one of the powers of literature and the power of the book, that the stories stay in there. And they, of course, the books can be forgotten also, but it's there, written, you know, in the book. So it kind of makes the story exist and be preserved also in time. I had never been thinking about it like this, you know, but that's how they felt about it. Like, oh my God, I had forgotten all this.
We have time, yes. I wanted to ask you, of course, the last question will be about your new project or something, what you are doing now. But for me, it's interesting your biography in a way, because you are born in Finland. Yes, and grow up in Senegal.
That's right.
Yes, and now you are living in Paris, and you are French writer.
Yes, I think you can put it this way. Yeah. Well, of course, I have absolutely any kind of merit in this. I mean, it's my parents' choice to go and live in Africa. We first lived in Namibia, which was part of South Africa. Actually, by that time, it was not an independent country, and then in Senegal. So all my childhood memories are African memories, mostly Senegalese memories, as I was too small when we were in Namibia. I don't have any clear memories about that. So I don't know, it's just my life, you know. We live through different things and they just happen. And of course, these things, they have an impact on us and who we are. For instance, well, I know what it means to be not the same color of skin as all the other people around you. I know what that means because that's how I grew up. My parents were missionaries, so we were not at all living in an expat world. I was going to Senegalese school with Senegalese kids, learning colonial history through the Senegalese school program, which is quite different from what my own children born in France and living in France have been learning in French school. So, and actually, the book that came just after this one in French is about colonial history and the heritage of this colonial history in French society. So I guess that has, of course, built up my way of looking at the world. Maybe that has also made me an observer, because I know what it means to be at the margins of the society, being privileged or not. Of course, as a white person, I am not being considered the same way as a black person in France, for instance, especially by the times political times that we are facing right now in France. But yeah, I guess that has something to do also about the choices, the professional choices that I've made, being a journalist and trying to understand the world, and also trying to find stories that will make the world more understandable to those who read. Maybe that's something that I have been trying to do in my work as a journalist, and now in my work as a writer. Yeah.
Okay, is there something that you want to tell us? And I don't know, is there something occur in your mind that you want to share with the audience that we didn't talk about it?
You have tricky questions. um,
It was not my intention to have tricky
Yeah.
questions.
I was kind of trusting that you would lead me through all this, but well, maybe just something that I want to say for you being here in Sarajevo. As I said in the beginning, it's a very, very special thing for me, bringing the story back in a way. In this, I mean, in this book, I'm not bringing the story back. You are. By book, you are bringing the story back. And maybe just one thing that I wanted to say. When I first came to Bosnia 14 years ago, I had a very naive question in my mind, and I was looking for answers. And the question was, what does it mean to live with the memory of the war 20 years after, which is a very short time in a society's level, but it can be a long time in the life of an individual. And I still don't have the answer, actually. I've been trying to look for it. And I've been, I have stopped asking questions. When I first came, I had these questions. I was a journalist, so the job of a journalist is to ask questions, right? And then people are free to answer or not. But I've stopped. I've stopped asking questions here. And the more I come back and the more I listen, whether it's listening to the words or listening to the silences, the less I understand, I think. I don't know, maybe that's something that I wanted to say. I don't think I know the truth about what happened. I just try to tell the stories that people have given to me, and I feel it's a gift they gave me. So I cannot keep it to myself. I try to, give it back to the readers.
Okay, thank you for your answers. And now it's time for you to ask something, TAINA.
Thank you for your very interesting answers. I would like to ask you two questions. The first question is, have you ever experienced a writer's block? And do you have a mechanism or steps how to deal with your writer's block? And the second, in my opinion, more important question is there a thing you've been wanting to write about, but you still feel you're not ready yet to start writing about it? Thank you.
Thank you for the questions. Yes, the being blocked is something that I know. I have experienced it. Usually, what I do is I just leave the story somewhere, and I go on to another story and go doing something completely different, and then come back. That can help. And then I was in a residency last year, and I spoke with Benny. Benny is an Indian writer who has written. He was working on his 12th novel when we met, and he gave me some advice. So I will share the advice with you because I think it was a good one. I have tested it afterwards. So when you're in front of this block and you just cannot write, just leave your story there and go and take a book that you really, really, really like and just read it. And he said, you will see, it will help you. You will not find the answer in the book, but you will see it will help you. And I have tested it, and it does work. So that's one advice that I've been given. And the second question, yes, there are several stories that I want to write about, actually. One of them is non-fiction stories. One of them is linked to France, to the country where I live in, and to a particular region in France, Le Berry, which is a very rural area in France. And it's about the traditional healers that still exist in France, the not many people know about in the big cities, but it's kind of a tradition that is still there. And well, in this, I mean, let's put it this way: I am ready, but I'm just waiting for the story to come to me. So, because sometimes you need to take that time, and I would also like to come back for another story in Bosnia-Herzegovina, and for that one I am not sure. I'm ready. Maybe I will find an answer during this trip, this journey, I hope. But I will not talk about it more because it's, you know, it's not ready yet, or I'm not ready yet.
Looks like I have the microphone, but it's not working. Hi, Taina. I just have one question. You mentioned earlier that you had a documentary talking with the dead. I'm curious. Okay, I can stand up. You mentioned you had a documentary talking with the dead. I'm curious how similar the narrative is to the documentary before us. That's a piece, though. Did you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, wait. Do I need to repeat the question? Okay.
So the question was about is the narrative the same or similar in the documentary and in the book? Yeah. Well, the forms, you know, a documentary form and a book are very different kind of forms. I do both. I have also done a podcast recently, so working only with the sound, and it's again a different kind of narrative. I also do comics, and comics is another kind of narrative yet. In the documentary, what is similar to the book is maybe I don't know how to say this. It's where I stand in a way. The documentary is not in the book. I say I at some points. In the documentary, not at all. But for me, I feel I'm standing in the same space. I don't know how to put this. I'm observing, right? And the documentary is very direct cinema, which means that there are no voiceovers or anything of that kind. It's really like I follow Daria in her work. I follow the work on a mass grave, not Tomashica, but another one, which was discovered in 2017 at Koryzhansky Stieny. Yeah, so it's observing and trying to stay at the right distance of what is happening. I'm not interfering at all with what is happening.
Is the silence you listen to sometimes too loud?
It is. Yeah, sometimes it's kind of shouting. Sometimes I can feel it very like it's a physical sensation. In the book, I describe a moment when I come out of the train in Prijedor, and the silence is very loud in Prijedor. You can. There are some things that you just kind of talk about it and you know it, and it's very obvious, even for me, who I'm a foreigner.
Thank you.
My question is, when you talking about what can help us when we writing in between, can you relieve us what actually helped you when you made this book? I'm sure that you made it beautifully, but what was your inspiration?
Thank you for the question, because it's true that there is something that I had a feeling at one point of my life, because, well, you can understand going back and forth for 10 years, a lot of things have happened also in my life, in my personal life, which I'm not talking about in the book, but is still there. And there were times when coming back here was healing me. I was not writing the book by that time, but I kept on coming back, not necessarily because I had any kind of work to do or articles to do, but I just came back because, well, by now I have friends here, and I come and spend time with them. And I couldn't really say what that was. Maybe it was just, you know, we all knew the importance of being together. You know, being together is a privilege, and having your beloved ones around you, having people you love and people who love you around you is a privilege. And maybe that's something that I have learned here and sensed here. And there is also one thing that Senem's mother once told me. She said, you are very lucky to live in a normal country, in a country where there is no war. And that's something that really stayed with me, that living in times of peace is a privilege. It's not the normal state of affairs, it's a privilege. And that's something that really kind of opened my eyes, her words telling me that. And that's something that has stayed with me afterwards. Yeah.
Thank you.
Is there any question more?
Thank you. I just one question. What is the most beautiful thing what the silence told you?
I'm not sure I have an answer to that. For me, silence here is linked to one person, very specially. His name is Mehmed. Mehmed passed away a couple of years ago. And he had lived through the war. He was made a prisoner in the camps. He had lived through all this. And he had lost his memory. He had a car accident afterwards in France, where his family went after the war, or during the war actually, when they fled. And he had this car accident and he lost his memory afterwards. So he had no memories, but so silence was very, I mean, with him I had no questions whatsoever to ask him because he wouldn't tell me. I suspect him to have kept quite a lot of memories, but he just didn't share them any longer. And it happened for Mehmet sometimes that, you know, he recognized people, but he recognized them from before the war. And so it happened that he was in Prijedor and he saw someone he knew and he said, "Come and have a cup of coffee with me." And then his wife, who went for shopping, came back and she was shocked because the person that he had invited for a coffee was a guardian of the camp. And in a way, I think Mehmed told me, you know, that silence sometimes it can be really, really loud, but sometimes silence can be also freedom. And that in a way, you know, the memories that he had lost or that he chose, I don't know, I will not speak for him, but, you know, that it gave freedom as well. And he was the one who tried to teach me the language, but it didn't work out very well. I know how to say kafa, krava, and these kind of things, you know, but kafa helps, but krava, you know, doesn't help that much.
So we are at the end. Thank you for all the answers and thoughts, and thank you for because you made this book, and I can't say that it's must read because must read is, you know, like it's this modern like terms, but when I was editing the book, I felt like some kind of warm feeling inside of the West Bosnian houses or the gardens or this kind of nature around the towns or villages, and I think it's the book that that if we want to understand us more, that this book can help us, because it is about us, and but written by you, by you who are not from Bosnia, obviously, but and that is the quality more that we can add to this book. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your words, Faruk. Thank you.